Welcome to my cluttered garage. I'm really glad you're here. A place where we can laugh and talk and days are filled with cheer. The clouds and sun may come and go, but one thing's always clear. Welcome back, my friend. You know I'm really glad you're here. Yeah.
Hey, welcome back, my friends. I am truly glad you're here. Welcome to live stream number 184. It's December 2nd, 2024. Somehow, I think we skipped right over November. I feel like we went from October to December. Anyway, here we are, month of December, wrapping up the year here, the last month of the year. Well, again, thanks for being here tonight. It's another Monday evening, and I'm really excited to bring to you my guest this evening. But before I do, I just want to mention, if it's your first time here, first time watching one of these live streams, this is an interactive live stream. So you'll see in the chat section on YouTube and Facebook that there's an interactive chat. So in that chat, please say hi. Please say my first time here. Let us know how you found the channel. Was it YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, or TikTok? Because you can find me everywhere. And we do this every Monday evening, 7 p.m. Eastern Time. We run for about an hour each Monday night. Sometimes it's an interesting guest like I have tonight. Sometimes it's just me and just chatting about, the channel and things like that. But tonight, I have a guest that I connected with on over there on Instagram. And he's got an interesting Instagram channel. Do you call them channels? I don't know. Instagram account. His name is Ryan Haasen from Civilcraft Studio. And he's going to talk to us tonight about what he does, not necessarily just with his Instagram platform, but what he shows. I'm going to bring Ryan on here in just a moment. First, I want to show you what he does with this little video clip. These are some clips from his Instagram account. And then we'll bring Ryan on and talk to Ryan. How about that? Pretty interesting stuff, huh? There is Ryan Haasen. Ryan, how are you, my friend?
I'm good, Ed. I gotta say, you make me look pretty official with those videos and that intense music there.
Well,
you're making me look pretty cool.
It's not hard to do, I can tell you that. You provide the content, and it all comes together. Hey, thanks for joining me tonight. I really do appreciate you taking some time to talk to us this evening.
Yeah, of course.
So let me just ask you, Ryan, I'm mesmerized by your work. And like I mentioned, I found you on Instagram, and just amazing to see what you're putting together there. What do you call that? Do you call it like sculpture? Do you call it model making, working with miniatures? What's the actual term for what you do?
It's tough to define, and at a high level, I call it blue collar art. I
Okay.
work in the construction industry. I work with a bunch of blue collar people. And so I call this blue collar art or construction art, which is not really, it's not really two words you hear used beside each other that often, but it's model making, it's woodworking, it's sculpture, um, concrete forming, concrete pouring. Like there's just so many things that go into it. And so that's why I just call it construction art because it's just easier.
And we'll talk about this a little bit later on, but you have a significant you have significant construction experience through your family business.
That's
So
right. Yeah.
you
Yeah. And
you know what you're putting together because you're familiar with the process and what the actual uh, that's why they're so highly accurate.
yeah, that's kind of what I bring to the table. Yeah.
No pun intended. The conference table.
That went right over my head until you said it.
So now this is an interesting industry. You can't be the only person in the world doing this, but I can't imagine there are too many people doing what you're doing.
You know, you never know what people are doing in their basements that they're not sharing on social media. But when I started doing this, and I guess we gotta talk about what this is. I guess at a high level, I build um, conference tables, and I guess the biggest thing is conference tables that have miniature construction dioramas in the middle underneath glass, um, and they kind of tell the story of construction and what that company does, and they serve as a great icebreaker for meetings. And so they're conference tables with construction models. Um, Now I've forgotten where I was going with all that. A construction experience, Ed, is that where we were going?
I think so. I think
Yeah,
so that
okay.
they're highly accurate to the industry and so
Yeah.
are tables the primary art form that you work on? I saw you had some smaller uh, models, but conference
Yeah.
tables are the main.
Conference tables are the main thing, and then I started making some smaller ones because it turns out people retire in this industry. And what better gift than a little model that shows what they did throughout their career that they can put on a shelf and show, their kids and grandkids and great
Brilliant.
grandkids what they did through their whole career. But I guess now I remember where we were going with that. We were talking about, does anyone else do anything similar to this?
That's right. Thank you.
And yeah, no, it went over my head too. Um, yeah, what people are building in their basements, I don't know. But on social media, when I started this, I couldn't find anything out there that was quite like it. There's those skilled railroad people who build miniature railroads,
You're right.
which I think most people know about. It's a hobby, and some people fill their entire basements with these extremely intricate railroads
Yeah,
that
that's true.
take
It's
the
very
whole
common.
basement. Yeah, and they're amazing. And so those people exist, but miniature construction models that I'd never seen before. And so when I started these back in 2021, I really couldn't find any resources online or people on social media to kind of draw inspiration or learn things from to build it. But since then, I've seen quite a few people kind of get into this and um, build similar types of projects. So there's some other people out there, but everyone has their own kind of unique spin and what they bring to the table on those projects.
So true. And I just want to say that to the folks who are just joining us that I'm speaking with Ryan Haasen from Civil Craft Studio. Ryan makes blue collar art, miniature replications of construction sites, uh, primarily on Instagram. You can see the content there. And that's what we're talking about. And I want to remind people as well that this is an interactive live chat. So go to the live chat. If you have questions for Ryan, please post them there. We'll try to answer your questions and we'll see what we can squeeze into this hour this evening. You brought up a good point when you said, who knows what people are doing in their basements? And I think about that often because I'm a content creator. I record content here on the property, uh, basically rural outdoor living lifestyle. But I watch a lot of channels, and some are really good. And depending on, it doesn't matter what the topic is, but I always think how people need to have multiple talents to be on social media. They have to not only be good at their craft, but then they have to understand video production, shooting and editing and storytelling, and they can be two different worlds. So it's interesting to me when the two come together, because like you said, I think there are a lot of people out there who have talents that we're not even aware of, because
Yeah.
they don't put it out there on social media. Maybe they don't want to, maybe they don't really know how. Um, but I even think of that when you see entertainers, singers, and you think, gosh, there are probably so many talented people out there who just don't come forward. So,
Yeah, and they don't have the platform to kind of show the world what they do, and maybe they don't want to. Um, and and that's one thing I find too, and like you and I kind of talked about before we even came on, is that my main platform is Instagram, and it's honestly because it's easy. And a long time ago, over a decade ago, I started sharing on there, just showing what I do, so my friends and family um, throughout the country in Canada could see what I was up to in my little workshop.
yeah,
And then things kind of grow over time. And now there's TikTok and YouTube and all these platforms that I'm really not taking advantage of. But that's because my skill set wasn't like social media, it was just woodworking and building things. And so now I'm trying to learn these other things, and I have a pretty good following on Instagram, like 300 and I think 45,000 followers
yeah,
now, which
yeah.
is a number I never even dreamed of. And I remember seeing people who had over 100,000 followers or 10,000 followers. I'm like, I would think, man, those like, that's a somebody right there. Like, I wonder what their life is like. And now I
Now you
realize,
know.
oh, you get there, and it's just normal.
Now you know what
But
it's like to be a somebody. It's no different, right?
yeah, it's no different. But then even on, I want to start a YouTube channel, but I'm kind of intimidated by it. So people think, oh, you must be some social media expert because you have a good following on Instagram,
Right.
but not really. That's not
Yeah.
really the case. I
Yeah.
just, you have a couple things go viral and you kind of ride the wave.
You definitely have an opportunity, I think, with YouTube, because you could do more long form content, maybe
Yeah,
tutorials. Looking at your Instagram account, you shared a very personal video recently, um, and you seem to really be an encourager of others, which is great. I was going to talk about this later, but we can mention this now. As I mentioned, you're part of a family that works in the construction field, and you shared in
yeah,
your video that you're kind of pulling back on the blue collar art, because you have this family business that you're part of as well, and you have to balance the two. And
yeah.
you're kind of, you're not going away, but you're embedded in this family business of construction. So
That's right.
part of that is that you do want to encourage others to do what you're doing.
Yeah, yeah. So I work full time in deep utility construction business, my family's business, and that's kind of where this, everything seems to kind of just fall in place and happen for a reason. But that's where these tables all really came from, is because I was sitting at my desk one day and I had a scale excavator, a little die cast excavator on my desk, and I was supposed to be working, but I was daydreaming. And I was looking at this thing and I'm thinking, man, it'd be cool if I had some other pieces of equipment that I could kind of stage with it, and maybe some little guys, and it could maybe look like one of our construction sites. And then, oh, what if I had like dirt and everything else that we have on a construction site and made a scale model of that? And then it snowballed into these conference tables. And um, long story short, the first conference table I built that went viral was our conference table for our company.
Okay.
And um, so up until that point, I'd worked in the field as a laborer. You know, I'd done all the dirtiest jobs you can probably do, cutting into live sewer mains and all that. And um, that was my background. And so I was able to kind of take all of that information that I've learned on construction sites and incorporate it into this model and make it kind of technically accurate. Because I knew the people that sat around this table, they know the ins and outs of this business, and they'll point out any little thing that is not accurate. So I knew it had to be accurate. And so, yeah, that's kind of like where this whole table thing came from. And then like all my other woodworking projects that I'd done in the past, I posted on Facebook and social media and share with my family. And usually I get, tens of likes and maybe a couple comments. And then these things, it kind of takes off. And I have all these companies on LinkedIn messaging me. Instagram didn't really take off at the time,
Right.
but LinkedIn really took off. And then it kind of, it grew. And I finally decided, okay, I'll make another table for this company down in Georgia. An 8 foot long table with a construction model of the work that they did, and how they did it, which is different than how we do it. But I talked with them and understood, okay, this is how you guys do it. This is the equipment you use. This is the color of the soil you have.
Wow.
Built a table for them. Put it in crates in the back of a pickup truck. Drove down to Georgia with my sister, and then we dropped off the table, set it up, sold the pickup truck, and then flew back home. And that was my first table sale.
Because you're up in Canada.
Up in Canada, yeah. So
Yeah.
that's a long drive down to
Yeah.
Atlanta, Georgia.
Wow.
Um,
There's a question on here, and it kind of goes with what you're talking about. Mikey's asking what scale you work in, and I was looking at your content, thinking you have to match everything, and that is
exactly.
probably a challenge. I know that you said a lot of these models are available online. You don't actually build the models. Some maybe you do, but I know you paint them and make them look the way they do. But as far as starting with it, you're able to buy a lot of these models to start with. First of all, is there a certain scale you work with?
Yeah. So, and this is something I had to learn about along the way, but 1 to 50 scale and 1 to 48 scale, which is kind of the same. Those are the common scales for construction models.
Okay.
Now, scale railroads, so trains and all the accessories, the people, everything you'd want, are not in those scales. They're, there's some in that scale, but very few. Much of it is so much smaller, like 1 to 87 scale, um, and way smaller than that, up to 1 to 200, I think.
Right.
Um, and so that's the most common for construction. If you want to do farming, you need to use 1 to 48 scale, or sorry, 1 to 64 scale.
Okay.
And you might think, oh, that's kind of close to 50, but you put them side by side and it's not.
It's a big difference.
Big differences. So you can buy a lot of equipment in 1 to 50 scale, but now you can't really buy scale people. You can't buy scale pieces of pipe, scale fire hydrants, all the accessories that you need to build a full construction site. They don't exist in that scale. And so what I've had to learn to do is 3D design, 3D print all those accessories.
I wondered about that. Yeah.
Yeah, so 3D printing has been a game changer. And when I built my first table, I didn't have a 3D printer, so it was all by hand. And there was one piece that I needed 3D printed because I knew it was just going to be too tough to do by hand. So I went on Facebook Marketplace and I found some high school kid who had a 3D printer, and I sent him the design. I'm like, hey, can you 3D print this? I really need it for this table I'm working on. And that's kind of how I built the first table. Then by the second one, I realized, okay, this 3D printing thing's, it could change a lot of things. It could change my workflow a lot. So I got into that world, and it's a game changer.
Sure. You can make anything that you need that way. And again, going back to the scale, that that's the one thing I really thought about the most when I watched you place the items in there, and I thought, gosh, that can that one thing can kind of blow the illusion, so to speak. If it's
Yeah,
not right, and it's not like you're in photography. If you're in photography, you can put the figure further away, and it's like, okay, now it
yeah,
kind of fits. But being
yeah,
three-dimensional and you can walk around these items, everything has to be within scale. And I thought of that when I saw the pipes in the ground. I thought, gosh, they can't be off, because somebody would look at that and say, we don't use 12-inch pipe there. That should be an 18-inch pipe or something like
yeah.
that. So,
And you know what, Ed? Like you would not. Well, maybe you would, but the comments that you get on these things, because my audience is a lot of people that work in the industry.
I'm sure. Yeah.
with a lot of experience, and you get quite a few trolls or people who like they'll make judgments on the way you build things, and if it's not technically accurate, like they are not afraid to point it out. And what's challenging too is that in all the different regions in North America, everywhere has their different specs on what's considered safe and what's the normal way of doing things and what type of equipment you use for any given task. And so if it's not, the same as the type of equipment that they use and the way that they dig a trench, they're like, oh, that's wrong. This guy doesn't know what he's doing. And so I've had to learn how to deal with that, and I can blow it off and not get offended by it. But it
And,
was pretty surprising at first, I'm not gonna lie.
and people aren't always right either. They just sometimes like to complain, but sometimes they are, and you use that, you know, to learn from, I suppose.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah,
I was looking at one of your models here. You have a lot of content about this particular model. I touched the screen. There we go. This model where you have the excavator reaching into the water,
yeah. Yeah,
and
that was a fun one.
the realism here is just amazing. Um, I want to know, like, how, like, did you have a process before this, or did you just figure it out as you went along? Because you have the consistency of the water is right. I know you had to use a Dremel and carve it out, and you're using a
Yeah,
torch to make the water flow. But even the color of the water, it's kind of dirty water. It's not just clear epoxy.
yeah.
How'd you get there in your head?
It's all just trial and error, and everyone thinks, "Oh, like, you must have everything figured out to be able to build these," but honestly, I don't. Like that one, the first time I poured the epoxy, because the way I wanted it to look was like that, the first or second bucket of the day where the water around is still got that kind of turquoise color,
Yeah,
but you can see the mud and the turbidity of the water kicking up kind of around where that bucket is just, taking a scoop out of.
that's right.
Yeah, just like that. And so the first time I poured the epoxy, I poured like the main color of the epoxy, like that bluish green color, which is kind of the color of the water, based on the real photos and video I was trying to replicate for this company. And then I poured that, and then I poured the brown water, muddy water, the turbidity water around the bucket, and it looked really good at first. And I was like, oh man, like I've nailed it. So I went back into the house, and then I came out a couple hours later, and that brown water had dissipated itself all throughout all the epoxy, and now it was all just brown,
Oh, it just mixed
and
in.
it just mixed in. So I was like, "Oh crap. Okay, well, I guess that kind of makes sense. Yeah, like it would all get brown after it's been digging for a full day. I guess that's going to be fine. It's kind of realistic still." Went back inside for a couple hours. The epoxy, it takes days to cure, so it's still liquid at this point. And then that night, I'm like looking at the pictures I had taken of it. I'm like, no, like it's just not the effect I'm going for. So I went back out to the shop, picked up the whole thing, and poured all the epoxy out into a bucket, and said, okay, I'm going to do it right this time.
Wow.
And I had a lot of people reach out to me with comments of, better ways to get separation. Um, and so what I kind of learned is that I need to pour the initial color of epoxy, that bluish green color, and then let that cure for a while to start to thicken up to almost like a honey kind of consistency.
Right.
And then and this is just me problem solving in the shop. I took some tin foil and I sunk it in to the epoxy, and then I poured the brown epoxy into there so it wouldn't plume too quickly. And I left that for a number of hours. How many? I didn't know. I just kind of would
Just
come into the
feeling it.
shop
Yeah.
every hour and check and see how it's doing until I was finally ready to pull that tin foil out and hope that that brown epoxy wouldn't dissipate too much. And luckily it worked. And the video of me pulling that tin foil out, it's like a 6-second video pulling it out of the epoxy, got like 50 million views for whatever
Yeah.
reason. and
I
it's
saw
just
that one too,
mind
and I
blowing.
thought I didn't know, I didn't even know what I was looking at when I
That's what
saw
people
the
say.
yeah.
Yeah. They're like, I don't know what I'm looking at, but it's cool.
You never know what's going to hit like that. Um,
Yeah. So it's all
and
just trial and error. That's all it is.
and that was kind of a one-off. It's not like the next day you did another one, then another one. So you have to kind of figure it out for each one, and then you're moving on to another type of project. So um,
Yeah. And everyone is different, and you're trying to they all have their own unique set of challenges. So you're trying to develop ways of building that specific project. And so in the back of your head, you're kind of building a catalog of skill sets and tricks you can use in the future. Um, and so I'm hoping to start to share some of those on YouTube someday so other people can build them too. To kind of come back to what we were talking about before with that video, um, of just encouraging others to start to build some of these and share them on social media. Because like I mentioned in that video that you talked about before, Ed, there's so much demand out there, and because I'm committed to working with my family's business with my siblings, like I can't pursue this full time and build all of them.
right.
And you think about all the construction companies out there, like all of them would love a conference table like this that tells their story. They can sit down with their clients and engineers and say, "This is what we do." They have people retiring, so smaller gifts. Um, there's just so much demand out there that people can jump on and kind of build their careers. So I'd like to start sharing a little bit more about how to do it and propping up others to do it because um, selfishly, I'd love to do it all myself and be this cool guy that is the only guy that can do them, but it's just not going to happen. So might as well let others jump on it as well.
Well, I think you are certainly in this art world. I think you're someone to aspire to, and I think you're very humble and don't give yourself enough credit for your talent and your skill. I noticed that when you had that video where you talked about that, I could hear that you were encouraging others, and I thought that's great that you're encouraging others to do this. But I thought, how many people can do this? It's really, and I know they're out there, like you said, people are in their basement doing this now. And when you said there's a demand for it, I thought, is there though? But then what you're saying now makes sense. There are construction companies everywhere. I mean,
Yeah,
you can't drive anywhere without seeing a construction site. So that's fascinating because it's kind of an industry, so to speak, that I would not even have thought existed. But I can see
yeah,
what you're saying about retirement gifts or smaller scale things. I can see there's demand for it. I certainly can't do it. I mean, it's not. I can appreciate it. I love to look at your work, and if I see anything like this out in public, it's like museum quality. What I'm seeing here, um, but I can't wrap my head around where to start, how you would even do that. Um, which,
and when
Good.
sorry, Ed, when I started, so my background was woodworking. When I was in grade six, I wanted to go into art class, and I wasn't at all artistic, but I'd done crafts with my mom when I was a kid, and I loved art. I loved drawing, and I wanted to go down that path. But art class was full, so I got put into industrial arts, which is wood shop,
uh-huh.
and then I fell in love with woodworking. And so that was my background up until I was about in my mid 20s, early to mid 20s, when I got this idea for this table. I'd never done scale models. Like, you know how people build scale model cars or boats and they're so intricate from like those
Yeah.
plastic kits? I'd never done those. Um, but with everything on YouTube, there's so many tutorials out there from these train modelers who, in my opinion, are like the true experts of this craft. The people who build those scale railroads are just
Right.
on another level. So I use those and like some scale railroad magazines that I had beside my bed that I would flip through every night and fold over pages that I thought might be useful. And so that's kind of how I learned. And so in my mind, I think, okay, well, maybe anyone can use YouTube and these resources, and over time, it's not going to happen quickly, but over time, kind of assemble all these skills you need to build these. And if you want to build a table and you know how to build scale models, but you don't really have access to a full wood shop or know anything about woodworking, well, maybe there's a local woodworker out there who builds tables but can't build models. And you guys can team up and create
Right.
this product that you know is going to sell for top dollar if you can, produce that level of detail.
Right. You have a great can-do attitude that
You got it, man. Yeah.
yeah, but like you're saying, like if you can't build the table, find somebody who can and focus on your craft and work together with somebody else who can do that. There was a question here from who's your handyman? Have you thought about hiring a person to assist? Uh, or is it as an artist, you probably own your artwork. So do you play well with others?
I play well with others, and if I was pursuing this full time, I probably would hire an assistant. And people honestly ask me that all the time. They're like, "Well, you have that much demand. Why don't you scale up the business, hire a full team, get a big shop, and go into production mode?" And sure, like for furniture, I guess you can. The scale models are tougher. It's a really unique set of skills. And then also, like on the construction side of things, like we talked about earlier, it has to be so accurate and realistic and technically accurate that the guys who sit around the table can't point anything out that's wrong. And so to find someone with that set of skills is tough. You could find people with, you could find a woodworker, you could find someone who builds skilled models, you could have someone who has worked in construction and knows this stuff, and you could assemble this team and you could do it with the right team. And or if I hired them, I could teach them and review everything and say, okay, before you glue that down, show me where you're going to put this guy, so I know he's not standing in a swing zone of an excavator. Things like that. You could coach them, but in my situation, it's just not something I can do. So and believe me, it was tough. I sat on this for like 3 years, trying to figure out what the heck I'm going to do. Am I going to scale it up or scale back and focus on the real construction business? And it was tough because there was a great business case for the scale model table, blue collar art business. Like there's a business case there for sure. But at the end of the day in life, you got to make a decision.
Can't do it
There's
all.
a lot of dead gophers in the middle of the road, right? So you got to pick a side and stick with it. And so that's what I had to do. So to answer the question, yeah, you could hire assistants and scale it up, but just not for me.
Right. Right. And you'd still have to be involved at such a intricate level that it would still be difficult to work in your actual construction business. Which Mikey has a question about that as well. That you work in the industry, do you get ideas from other construction sites? I mean, do you, as you're driving around, do you see things, and does that inspire you to add
Yeah,
that to your model
all the time.
all
And
the time?
with Instagram these days, there's people outside of the construction industry might not know, but on social media right now, largely thanks to this company called BuildWit, there's a big surge in construction companies sharing what they do on social media and telling their stories and posting cool videos and pictures of the projects they're working on. So all day, if you're on your phone, like all I see on my feed are construction companies and their projects. And every time
Right.
I see one, I'm like, oh man, that'd be a cool diorama. Oh man, I know just how I build that
Yeah.
detail, and that would be so cool. And like there's hundreds of projects and sites out there that I'd love to build. And it's almost torture that you can't build them all. But
Right.
yeah, I draw a lot of inspiration from what companies share on social media and what I see driving down the highway.
Now, your business that you're in, do you do highway construction? Is it construction of uh, buildings and like commercial construction, or is it mostly like government construction for highways and bridges and things like that?
You know what we do? So the company name is Blue Con Excavating, and we're a deep utility contractor in Alberta, Canada. And what we do, what deep utilities is the um, sanitary, sewer, and storm lines that are underneath the roads. That basically, when you turn your tap on and water comes out, and when you flush your toilet and it goes away, that's what we do. And it's all
Okay.
buried below the earth. it's nothing glamorous to see at the end of the day, because you have streets and homes, and everyone forgets about what we do except for fire hydrants and manhole covers in the road. But what we do is we put in that infrastructure in the dirt, deep below the ground before the houses are built. So it's a bit of a thankless job, except when people turn on their taps and flush the toilets,
It has
they
to
have
work.
you to thank, but they don't think of it.
No, we don't want to think about it. We just want to know that it works.
Yeah, yeah. Or when the water main breaks in the city, we're one of the companies that will get a call to go fix it and get the water back on, so the taps flow.
Right.
So it's a really important um, service that we do, um, but not glamorous, I guess, on the surface for some.
Right.
However, we're the ones with the big excavators and dozers and loaders and
Right.
everything else that's working and shaping the earth, and to put in this infrastructure. So it's a really, like, for people who love heavy iron, it's a really exciting industry.
Uh-huh. That's interesting. I'm just curious, since you're in the industry, we had a pretty famous highway collapse here in New Jersey several years ago. They're building a highway and the retaining wall collapsed. So it was a major faux pas, I guess, in engineering or construction or
Yeah.
materials. But I'm curious if you heard about that where you are, like if it kind of resonated through the industry. Here's a picture of what it was here. Uh, but that whole retaining wall it
Wow.
was finished. The road wasn't open yet, but the retaining wall was complete, and we had a rain, and it just imploded. It just collapsed within itself.
It's crazy that it collapsed within itself and not outwards.
Yeah,
And I didn't hear about this, Ed. I
you
don't
did
think I
not hear
did
about it.
anyways.
It would make a
No,
great model,
that would make a great model right there, like that exact picture.
right? But
Yeah, like,
anyway, that happened years ago, and it's taken years to correct it. And like I said, the highway wasn't open yet, but you drove by and you thought, what happened there? Like, how could that have happened? Obviously they used the wrong type of soil or fill. I don't know. But anyway, I was
yeah,
just curious if
like,
that kind of made its way through the construction industry, but
no, I didn't see
has
that
not.
one. And you know what? Thankfully, it that happened before it was opened, and
Yeah,
there's any
exactly.
people on there.
Can
But
imagine. I can't remember the YouTube channel, but there's an engineer on YouTube, and he talks about all types of construction. And he actually did an episode about that, not
okay,
specifically that one, but it was included in one of his episodes. So it, I guess it made its rounds through some networks. But
yeah, I get it. Just missed my algorithm, I guess, is what
yeah,
happened
I guess
there.
so. Right.
Yeah, yeah,
So the other thing I was thinking about in looking at your work, because of the detail, uh, at what part I'm fascinated by your brain, Ryan. When when do you give your brain permission to stop? Like, the detail is so intricate, and you're adding the grass, you're adding the marks in the soil, you're adding dirt to the equipment with the paintbrush. Like, at what point do you say, all right, I think that's enough? Because you seem to keep going. Like, there's detail, and then there's more detail, and then there's more detail. Like, does it hurt your head? Like, do you not allow yourself to stop? Or at what point are you satisfied and say, okay, I think I got it?
yeah. It's a great question, and it is something that I think every model maker would struggle with. And something that I learned about is, like, every every builder has their, or artist, or someone who builds, models that replicate something in real life. They have their own distribution of detail, it's called. And it's areas that they're going to focus a lot of energy in, and areas that they're not going to focus much energy in. And that's kind of what makes them unique. And so for me, I try to focus the most energy on areas that people are going to see. But then, and it's tough because, like, you get down that rabbit hole, man, and like
Uh-huh.
you don't know which way is up or when to stop. And I've done details inside of concrete pipes that from underneath the glass of the table, no one is ever going to see.
Right.
But I just like putting them there in case they look at it from this angle and they see it. So it is a real rabbit hole you can get lost in. But I guess in my head, I kind of have my limit, whether it's okay, that's good enough, which it takes a long way for me to get down to that point where, okay, you know what, that's I'm happy with that.
Uh-huh.
But then you'll post pictures on social media and you'll be zooming in and editing pictures, and it's like, well, I'm not really happy with the way that that looks from this angle. So next time I'm going to make sure I add this detail here, and it's constantly getting better and better with every model.
I'm sure. I'm sure.
Yeah, like
And
you're always
obviously with
trying.
your eye, you see things that most of us wouldn't see. But
Yeah, but to me, it's just standing out, and it's like, well, no, I can't leave that, so I'm going to spend 8 hours working out a way to fix that so it looks better, even though at the end of the day, no one's probably going to see it.
right.
But I know it's there, and I see it, and I guess for me, it's important.
Well, I go back to I made the comment earlier about if your scale is off, it kind of blows the illusion. And I think I'm not an artist myself, but I would say this whole process is illusion. You're giving the illusion that this is a real construction site that has been miniaturized. And if you have a plastic tire on a piece of equipment and you can see the mold where that plastic tire was made, it's like you've ruined the illusion. It's like, oh, that's a toy, or that's that.
Yeah,
But by covering it with mud or doing what you do, you keep that illusion real.
that's
Uh,
right. We call them giveaways. Like, you got
uh-huh.
to destroy and cover up any giveaways,
Uh-huh.
and
Right.
it's tough to get them all. And sometimes you don't notice them until it's done, and you look at a picture and you zoom in. It's like, oh, I got you. Like,
Uh-huh.
I know that's not real. Even if you put, whenever I'm done a project nowadays, I try to get pictures outside with the natural light and the sky in the background. Try to
Right.
make it look as realistic as possible. And so it's just trying to cover up any of those giveaways and the got you type details.
Well, because again, you put yourself out there, your audience goes far beyond your customer base. You've got potentially millions of people who are looking at your
Yeah.
product, and like you said, they'll let you know if
Yeah, I'll
it's
let
not
you know.
right.
And it's interesting too, the whole social media thing, which is new to me and still feels that way a lot of the days. But you'll have people who they'll let you know what they think, and they're not going to be nice about it. But then you have your core group of supporters, and they'll back you up. And so, like, down in the comments, there'll just be these threads of people saying disrespectful comments and other people, backing me up, and it's this whole conversation happening down below. And you just kind of stand back and you're watching, and it's like, whoa,
Right.
this is crazy.
That's funny. Are you familiar with there's a I guess well he's on Facebook and Instagram, Anthony Schmidt. He is a young man who takes photographs with miniatures with models. And
With
he
the cars.
yes, which is
Yeah,
what
oh, I
I thought
totally.
of that when you said you like to take your models outside to get realistic backgrounds. And he this is the kind of work that he does with model cars, but he uses actual backgrounds. If we look at there he is taking the picture with
Yeah,
the
he's so talented, man.
he
Like,
he's
the
got
shots
this
he gets.
he's got this
Yeah.
skill of perspective and really fascinating to see his work as well. So I thought you could do some of that with your work, or it sounds like you do that now by taking your work outside and trying to use a realistic background.
I try to, but definitely not to the extent that Anthony does. And
He's
and sometimes too, I don't know if you've seen this one, Ed. He has like these old cars in his barn, and he'll take like a smoke machine and put
yeah,
smoke into the barn, and he snaps these pictures at the same time. And you watch his thumb, like he's taken a million pictures,
yeah, yeah,
and he's just waiting to catch the right one.
right.
And it's just
And he
incredible.
does it with a cell phone, with an iPhone, I think,
Yeah.
which is
Yeah.
which is amazing. So
And that's another thing too, like, just all the different types of skills you have to try to develop, like photography. Like, okay, you can
right,
build it, but can you show it off in a way that's actually like, somewhat high quality, in a way that's going to be good enough for people not to scroll past on their phone?
right.
And honestly, like I use my phone in my shop. It's just
Right.
my cell phone.
Yeah.
And iPhones these days, they have pretty good cameras.
They're amazing. I mean, there's no reason not to use them. It's just
Yeah.
it's kind of crazy. I do want to say hi to our friend Chris from the Watershed Overlook. It's his 35th wedding anniversary, so happy wedding anniversary, Chris and Anne. And Chris, I know you've been in and out. We did talk about some of this, the people and the models where they come from. Yes, Ryan does use some 3D printing for some things, but the people, are those just off the shelf, or do you print the figures as well?
There's a handful of figures, and I'm talking like maybe maybe 6 unique figures that are high quality that you can buy, but that's it. And it's pretty limiting to when you're trying to build a construction site.
Right.
So I 3D print my figures and I hand paint them. And
Okay.
so how do you hand paint a figure? Well, I stumbled upon the whole the D&D, the Dungeons and Dragons
Right.
community, and they paint these figures and they are just unbelievable. Like
Yeah.
they're so detailed in the highlighting. So I watched some videos of what they do, and I try to, catch some tips and tricks from them and use that in my scale construction workers. But honestly, I don't come close. And any D&D person who looks at my figures is going to say that's amateur hour, and they're right because they're experts in their field.
Right.
But yeah, so that's another skill you have to develop to be able to create these sites is hand painting people to make them look somewhat real.
There are so many elements, the equipment, the landscape, the materials, the people. It's a lot of elements that you've gotten yourself into here, Ryan.
Yeah. Even like equipment, like I've been around equipment for a long time, and if you buy a die cast model of an excavator, it's going to be shiny. Well, I have here's one here, and this is a smaller scale than what I work in.
Right.
This is 1:87 scale, but you can see it's shiny. There's not a speck of dust on it,
Right.
and that's not how they look in the field. So you have to know where the grease collects,
Right.
and then where the dust sticks onto that grease, where the wear and tears on the equipment, where it might rub up against a bank or rust. Like the buckets never have paint on them
Yeah. That's right.
like that. They're always silver or rusty or covered in dirt.
Yeah.
So
So you don't
learning
just
all that
dirty it up.
too.
You have to dirty it up where it where it's appropriate,
Yeah, and
but
if
that
you dirty it up too much in the wrong spot, well, now it looks like a piece of equipment that someone has just been reckless with,
right.
and
Right.
it's a beat out piece of iron. And so you don't, if you're making something for a company, you don't want to make it look like their people disrespect their equipment,
Right.
right? So you got to be careful in that way. So there's just
Has to
so
be
many little
used,
things.
but kind of taken care of as well. So
Yeah, it's a real balance.
makes sense. Hey, before we let you go tonight, we are going to do my weekly sticker giveaway. And I have, for folks who are watching, most folks here come every week. So you know that I'm going to share a word or phrase on the screen and we'll do the sticker giveaway. But Ryan, you have something that you're going to add as well.
Yeah, I don't have a lot of swag yet, but what I do have is I got some stickers too.
We love
So I
stickers.
got a set of 3 here that will ship out to the lucky winner.
All right. So here's your word or phrase on the screen for folks watching on YouTube or Facebook while it's live. Obviously not in the replay, but in the live chat. If you just type the word #civil, uh, oh, my brain, civil craft
Civil
studio.
craft.
Anyway, #civil with no space, uppercase or lowercase, doesn't matter. And we will hit the draw button here as soon as this tune reaches the end. So that's great that you had the stickers made. I know we talked earlier and you're like, I really don't have anything. And you had the
Yeah.
stickers. That's great.
Well, until I watched some of your videos and I saw the stickers, and I thought, oh, well, I got stickers. That's about all I
Stickers are
got.
great. Yep. Excellent. So meanwhile, be sure to go to Instagram primarily and check out Civil Craft Studio studio or studios?
Studio.
Studio, and see Ryan's amazing work. Ryan, I want to encourage you to do a little bit more YouTube content because I think there's a great opportunity for you there. I know you're going to be busy with everything else you're doing, but I think it's a great outlet for you. And I love that you're so encouraging of other artists out there, and that you're pretty open with your process. And I think most successful artists do share like you do. The ones who hold it to themselves, I don't think they do as well.
Well, it's tough, if you come across a niche. For a long time, I wanted to keep it to myself, but now that you can't bring it to its full potential, well, maybe someone else will. So why not encourage others? I see a lot of people out there that can do it. So now's your chance.
Well, and it's always going to be a little different than yours, because with
That's
any
right.
art form, everybody has their own style, and that yours are always going to be different.
Yeah.
All right, so we're going to hit this draw button here in just a moment. Giving people a little bit more time. All right. We have a lot more people than entering.
Come on, guys. Free stickers.
Here we go. Our winner tonight is... let's start it over again. Kim. Congratulations, Kim.
Congrats, Kim.
So, Kim, I believe you won before, but I need you to send me an email, Kim. Let me pop my email address up here on the screen so that we can share this. Kim, send me an email again with your mailing address, and I will forward this to Ryan. So I'll send you my stickers, and Ryan will send you his stickers. The email address is contactmcgtv@gmail.com, and we will get these out. So congratulations, Kim. Happy for you. Excellent. Ryan, thanks so much for talking to me tonight. I really do appreciate it. I should have had probably more video content to show more of your work, but I do hope people will jump on over to Instagram and see what you're doing over there. So
yeah, there's a lot.
What are your plans? As you said, you're kind of scaling back on taking on work. So, like, what's your immediate future look like? Do you have a backlog of jobs you have to finish up, or are we going to be
Not
seeing?
really. I would just take on one project at a time, just because I knew my limitations, really. But when I was in the thick of things, I was working 50 hours at my day job and over 30 hours on nights and weekends building these tables, and so it's not sustainable. So going forward, I'm definitely not going to stop. I can't stop because it's my outlet, and I love it.
Yeah.
So I'll keep taking on one project at a time and picking away at it at my own pace, and sharing what I do and kind of how I do it with the world through social media.
Maybe not 28-foot long conference tables, or
You know what? I don't think I'll ever build a table that big again, but it was a life-changing journey. I'll say that much.
Now, that table that I showed in the opening video, was that for your own company, or that was for a customer?
That was for a customer in Maine,
In Maine.
a great company, and yeah, they turned 100. Well, they're turning 100 years old in 2026, so they wanted a table that showed their whole timeline of their business from the 1920s up until now.
Oh, that's brilliant. Yeah.
Yeah, it was an amazing project to be able to build for some great people.
Wow. And I hope they stay where they are, because that's not something you're going to be moving around.
It weighs thousands of pounds. They built the base out of steel, all out of steel, with steel tracks from an excavator that form the
Is that what
legs.
that was? Okay.
Yeah. So it's thousands and thousands of pounds.
Wow.
So hopefully they never move.
Yeah. So do you make your work so it can be disassembled, or they'd have to call you probably to
I might have to
take.
call me because it's all modular. Like that table in particular, I put into 11 different crates, put it in the back of a U-Haul truck, and drove it 5,000 kilometers from Alberta to Maine with my wife in the back of, with the project in the back of a U-Haul truck. That's how we delivered it.
You
And
seem you seem pretty low key. Like, what's your stress level like during those kind of events? Are
honestly, like, so my wife and I, we weren't married at the time, but we were getting married later that year, and I said, this is going to be a good test to see how we can perform under pressure.
Yeah,
And honestly, it was a great trip. My stress levels were pretty low. You hit some bumps in the highway, and you're like, oh,
right.
I hope nothing broke in the back. Um, but no, my stress levels are pretty good, and having a good partner for the journey makes all the difference.
And I guess you assemble it at your shop first, and then disassemble it so that it does go together.
That's right. Yeah, I
Right.
assembled, but the tough thing is that they built the base, and it was fixed dimensions that I gave them, and so you hope that you gave them the right dimensions with
Right.
enough um, wiggle room, and B, that they built it to those dimensions. And luckily, it all worked out. But in hindsight, I would have given myself a little more wiggle room because it was tight and
Yeah,
it was stressful assembling.
I'm sure. Well, good times. Well, listen,
Yeah,
Ryan, we're at the end of our time, and I just want to thank you again for spending this time with me. And I want to wish you well in your future endeavors with the company, with your continued work with the Civil Craft Studio, and we'll be following you. We'll be following you on Facebook, and you know that you've certainly made some new friends here tonight in the live chat. So I'm sure a lot of other people will be hopping on, and we're here to support you. So I hope you'll come back and talk to us sometime.
absolutely, at any time. I appreciate it. Appreciate
Thanks
the
so
time, and
much.
thank you all for tuning in.
All right, we'll talk to you again. Thank you, Ryan.
Take care. See
Well, thank you, folks, for joining tonight. Another great Monday night. Boy, he was fun to talk to, and I do hope you'll check out the Instagram account, Civil Craft Studio, and follow Ryan's work. I hope you have a great week. I hope that um, you'll join me next week. And I've got some other guests coming up over the next few weeks, too. I'll tell you about that once I get those locked in. But I've been talking to some other people. So always a good time. Thanks for being here. I do appreciate it. And as always, I look forward to seeing you next time.